Avast me hearties, and welcome once again to Full Steam Ahead. I be your Captain Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me as always is me skinny rich friend and first mate.
It's Mozz.
Welcome, Mozz. Welcome back to the final episode. Oh my gosh, you know what we forgot to do all last episode?
What?
Say it was the penultimate episode. But the penultimate episode has passed. Welcome to the final episode so far of Willow. Season 1, Episode 8, Children of the Wyrm. The immemorial city awaits, refuge of the wicked crone and her dark designs. Our director this week, again, is Jamie Childs. Our writers, of course, are Ryan McClendon, who gets our written by, along with Jonathan Kasdan. Jonathan Kasdan, of course, gets our developed by, and George Lucas, on his big old pile of money, gets the based on characters created by credit. And this reminds me, you know, we did not talk about at all last episode.
Perich?
But the seduction of Eric, yes. Because that is the thing. When Laura and Kit make their leap of faith, when they arrive at the immemorial city and they come in, they made a very different Eric. And that's because during the entire episode, we were seeing Eric dealing with the slow grinding of the psychological torture of the Wyrm, which is that, of course, pretty lady, the crone, telling him about how things can be different, using...
He can be the hero that ushers in.
Yes, you know, and just this desperate thirst he has, because, of course, he's drinking from the well with the orange water, you know, which he knows can't be good for him. But he's like, he also doesn't want to die of thirst, you know?
Right. I mean, people have eaten each other when confronted with that feeling. So, you know.
Yeah. There is some room for forgiveness in this. But we did see at the end of it where he finally does give in. And he's just like, as he's dying, he's just like, whatever you need to do, just save me. And she saves him, all right. And he gets a nice haircut and a new suit, and gets look all fly when he comes out. And that is where we meet our heroes in this episode.
I feel like it's not, I mean, I feel like it's a bit of a cop-out to say that he's only acting this way because of the orange juice, right?
No.
I mean, he's also dumb, right? And gullible. So, like, that's a significant portion of why he gives in, too.
I mean, I can go along with that as a statement. I don't want to say he's that dumb and gullible, but yeah, he's.
I mean, you know, that's a compromise I can agree to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting here and saying, well, come on, he's pretty dumb and gullible.
Right.
Let's call it shelter having an entrenching tool here, my friend. Yeah, he, you know, because that's the thing. We knew when we first met the girl, it's like, oh yeah, that's the crone. When she says, "Are you here to release me?" And it's like, because it is, hey, you want to be in the fairy tale? Well, here's the fairy tale. You get to be the knight in shining armor, right, who saves the princess who's been captured.
Didn't your grandmother ever tell you stories about how spirits come to you and try to entice you? Everybody's grandmother must have told them ghost stories about how they come to you. And you've been hearing stories about the crone being trapped away your whole life and nothing dawns on you as suspicious?
To be fair, his grandmother was in league with the crone and died at the end of the first Willow. So
yeah, fair enough.
So, you know, I do think that there is maybe that, you know, that's an interesting question about the loss of generational wisdom and how much not having a grandmother to guide him in the ways of magic and the world, you know, that maybe that was actually far more damaging than we imagine. That even though his grandmother was evil, like even an evil grandma can have wisdom that if she has been defeated can still give you some perspective and give you some guidance.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point about like knowing where you come from and where you belong. It's sort of the argument almost Willow makes to Borman, which was a beautiful moment, where Borman has spent so much time trying to deny that he is a good person and to carry the burden of responsibility that comes with admitting that you're a good person. But what gets to him is like, who do you care about? Where do you belong? And that's what finally gets him.
Yeah, and I do think that is, I mean, and that's the whole thing, because when we get to it, it is these, they are these parallel stories of Kit and Allura meeting Eric, tall, excellent looking Eric, as we say, and he's just trying to say, no, you just have to understand what she really is about. You just don't understand. And there's actually a really neat thing in there where they make the point, you tried to banish Allura to the 13th night. And then Guru just says, don't say that like you have any idea what that means. It's like, you're assuming that meant I was trying to kill her. And in truth, as we see, no, she was just trying to corrupt her. Or something along those lines. Like, what is that? And that is why it's so fascinating what they're trying to do, what these beings are trying to do, because clearly they do serve the necrotic. Because we see that every time that their powers are shown, we see the decay on their hosts' bodies. But we also see that the decay actually makes them stronger. And it's an interesting question, like, and again, what we were talking about last episode is that decay part of the strength of the world? That and this is the idea. This is the curse to live forever paradox, where, like, yes, you may never die, but if you just live forever and maybe you become weaker and you lose what you were in your prime, and your risking of death becomes so much less important because you cannot die.
Right. It seems to me like it's the same proposition the machines made to the humans in the Matrix, right? Become our batteries, you encase in this thing, and we'll feed off of you, and we'll give you a magical fantasy world of whatever you want, and you can live there for eternity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
that's
really,
what the Wyrm is offering.
And I think that there are a lot of people who think, really? That sounds great, because I just get to live in the Matrix or the framework, and I get to have this whole life, and I get to have a life that is a net positive. Because that's the real trick in those situations. You never want to make things perfect, because when things are perfect, they always that's when they get boring.
Right.
But if you have just enough struggle to make every day another day, and every time you go out with your friends, just another joy of going out with your friends, you don't mind that, and there's work that I have to do. Even if the work is meaningless, it's right. It's the intended struggle that is necessary to make all the other joyful moments that much better.
Right.
Yeah. So, but then
I feel
again,
like Borman would have been the perfect candidate to choose to go into this Matrix. He would have taken it pretty easily.
Oh, exactly. Which is why it's a good thing he didn't. Although, again, it's also one of those weird questions, like, is his the kind of soul that the crone wants, especially because it is so easily temptable?
Mm.
You know, telling him you can be the hero of the story. It's less. It has less merit when you're wanting to be the hero of the story is just you wanting to be the hero of the story because you
I
know
guess Borman would be like, spiritually speaking, empty calories.
yeah, exactly. You know, it's not like, you know, and again, what I was talking about with that last episode of Ghost, when, you know, bringing Pete back to hell is this, he says, I'd be hailed as a great trophy hunter, you know, because your soul is so freaking pure. We never get guys like you down there. So it's like this, you would be a real get. But, you know, and by contrast, you have Borman, who is just really kind of a ne'er-do-well, but, you know, his goodness is buried deep down. And but it is a real goodness. So it's hard to say exactly how it would play out, except we know that he probably is going to step off the path to goodness, you know. This isn't Roddy McDowell in the Thief of Baghdad, where, you know, he says, yes, me the thief, the prince falls, the hero falls. I, the thief, am the only one who can get to the end of this path and save the day. Because he realizes, oh, this is all a scam. This is all a con. Because that's the trick. You just have to realize it's a con, and then you're not tempted by it. But they get the con anyway, and it is just the idea of, you know, giving them what they want. You know, what do you want? You know, do you want? What if you could? And this is what's very fascinating when they're convincing Alora. It's like, what if you could just go back before and you can just be with Eric and he will make you queen and you will be his queen and he will be king and you never have to worry about any of this. All the people who died for you will no longer be dead. You will no longer have this burden of this responsibility of that, yes, if you are the hero, people will die for you. And you will be responsible for every death. And that is a heavy burden. And she is tempted by it. And we do see Kit again.
But is she, though? I feel like she was playing double agent the whole time.
You know,
do you think it was an honest, like, oh, whoa, maybe I shouldn't? Or it was like, biding my time, gotcha.
I mean, that's the interesting question. Because it could be, yes, it could be exactly that this was her 13th level chess. I think it's a lot more of just in time's salvation. And what I think about that is expressing the fact that she can walk away. This is something I was saying last episode about how, you know, when you sell your soul to the devil, what is the enforcement? Who enforces that contract? You know, who enforces? Because effectively, the idea is that you sign this way, saying, "I'm going to willingly give this to you," but if you takesy backsy, I
think the idea is that he could take it at any time he wants, right? But you won't fight him when he does if you've signed the paper. That's the idea. He just doesn't want there to be
but what if you do
when he comes to collect?
Right? But what if you do?
Yeah, he's going to take it anyway, but it's just a numbers game. Like, if I'm going to take 100 souls today, if I can get 100 of them to sign, maybe only 2 of them will decide to fight. But the fact that they themselves decided to give it over to you, they're not going to fight me as hard. They'll believe that I am owed it, and that's the trick.
Well, yeah, that is the trick. But this is what I say is the secondary trick to that. That if you just say, yeah, no, that's an unenforceable contract, dude. You know, well, like, again, if you say, what's your enforcement mechanism here?
He has powers.
Does he? I mean, he has powers, but, you know, are they real powers or are they illusions? Because that is what you always get into in this, is that at the end of the day, all of this is glamour. That's not really Kit's mom telling her, I was wrong, I was trying to do this, and that's just a glamour. And when she sees through it, because we do get Mad Mardigan's voice in this, and I don't know if that really was Val Kilmer's voice, or if it was a reworking of it, or something done with Val Kilmer's current voice doing the
I can believe that it was probably done with AI. You can do some crazy things.
Yeah, but they could also like take Val Kilmer's current voice, so it's his acting, and then you sweeten it. In the same way that if you were to get Val Kilmer like to come in, and then you can just layer over top of him how he looked.
Well, just
20 years
hearing how
ago.
hard of a time he had, even getting 2 sentences out in Top Gun Maverick, I find it hard to believe that he would have showed up and like recorded.
Yeah.
I see. It seems much more plausible that they have a wealth of data to pry from of all the movies and recordings he's done for AI to be able to make a pretty convincing facsimile of his voice.
Yeah, I hope he gets better. I really do. I know it's hard that he's going through this stuff, and it's hard to be a public figure when you're going through stuff. But I'm also glad that he's showing that he is struggling, and people know of his struggle, and it's going to make it that much better if he does get to the end. And if he doesn't, we know that he, he's always there. That's the joy of it. But yeah, we do get Mad Mardigan's voice in this, and again, where his choice to fight the Wyrm from within pays off, because he's able to reach out to Kit. And because he's able to reach out to Kit, he is able to let her know, I knew that you could do this. I knew that you would be the one to protect things,
Years ago, he threw the jab to her hook, He's like, that was the first salvo. But because the jab was there, she was able to land the power shot.
Yeah, and I think that is what is really great in that. And I mean, just on so many different levels, I really like how this plays out. When she comes to the wedding of of Alora and Eric, and she's like about to kiss him, and then you see like the magic, and then she's like, no. And that's, to me, the thing. It's like, if you just say, no, I walk away. You can't say, I've gone too far, because I say when I've gone too far.
Well, you haven't done it yet, so.
Yeah, but it is this idea that I think that the power that evil has over you is only the power you give evil over you.
Well, I think if you're a Laura Dannon, sure, but for the rest of the mere mortals, I don't think they would have been able to resist as easily.
Well, and again, I think that Kit does well. Yes, she had the outside help of her dad, but at the same time, that her dad's voice has probably been in her head her whole life. So
again, going back to the idea of generational wisdom.
Yeah, exactly. You need that generational wisdom to tell you how best to navigate, this dangerous world sometimes. That doesn't mean that you just accept all generational wisdom at face value, because obviously who and what the Bone Reavers are is something that people have been lying about, but also maybe only exaggerating about. And then maybe there are good Bone Reavers and bad Bone Reavers, just like every other group of people. I mean, that's always the thing. Like, and maybe there's even something in that the captain of the guard who gets corrupted by the Wyrm, who raised Jade, he raised her after he killed her mother, or something along those lines, killed her family, took Jade as his own to raise her. So maybe there was that corruption in her all along. And I think this is where we get into this question with Graydon, where when he does stand up to the crone and he gives her all he's got, and she says, man, I could take. Well, no, but more to the point. More to the point, like I knew he had the darkness within him. He showed me his darkness, and yes, and that's how she was able to claim him.
Right. It
Because
almost seems like that was the plot all along. That the whole Elora Danan business was just a ruse, a clever ruse to draw the other piece of the puzzle that has been out there existing for so long. Like the crone's sister spirit that's latched itself to Graydon or something.
I mean, that's a possibility. I personally prefer to think that the Wyrm is improvising. That, it's like, like when you get to that point, you realize like, oh, well, that's not working. Okay, so what can I do next? What?
Yeah.
Who's the next piece on the board? And and we even see that arguably when we have when the crone, after the crone is defeated, then infects Eric. She's like, no, I always knew you would be the one.
Right.
And then you see Eric become the super BA because he wants to be the hero. It's his story. Although, again, within that also holds in that really great scene with Borman where he realized I'm not the hero of this story, and gives Kit the armor. And then Kit gets the whole Iron Man transformation, which, makes a good joke at the end where he's like, I'm going to take this off. Don't worry. As soon as I figure out how.
My favorite thing was when Jade goes, when?
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, it's cool armor, man. Which, of course, leads to its own concept of power corrupting. So that's the other thing. That's, I wrote a story years ago about, like the idea of the shield of Galahad, that it would be passed on from hero to hero, but that eventually it stops working because you become too hubristic. It's like once you feel you can never be defeated, the shield stops protecting you, and then you get defeated. But the shield remains for the next worthy person to pick it up and take on the fight. So lots of possibilities of what we're going to see in Volume 2.
But it certainly seems like Graydon is left with little choice but to give in. I mean, he could be the only one alone in the darkness fighting these armies, or stand at the helm of these armies.
Well,
what choice does he have?
I agree. I mean, that is very much the question here. Graydon, because of course, this is what I think is most interesting. Because you see, as they're all about to leave, and they're all about to, we'll figure it out, we're the heroes, which is famous last words, But then what else are they going to do? It's like, yeah, I don't know how we get out of here. And like the last time I walked this thing, it just flew back 100 times.
Yeah, we got here, didn't we? We'll get there too.
Yeah, but then again, that's the magic of a fantasy story. That they will eventually, that one can argue that, yeah, next episode, they're all back in the Shire and everyone's happy. Yeah. Good thing that adventure ended. Now let's prepare for the next one. But we see Elora look back because she knows they're leaving Graydon behind. She knows
the job isn't done.
Yeah, that's the thing. They know the Wyrm is still there. They know Graydon has been left behind. And she knows we're leaving the job undone. And the idea that, oh, well, yeah, we leave the job undone because then what are we going to do next season?
I mean, it was also kind of like, oh, but the Wyrm is still trapped over there. It's like, yeah, what did you just look at what you just said? The Wyrm is what? It's trapped. All right, so can we have a beer? It's trapped. It's good. Let's settle down for a second. We've been having a rough couple of weeks.
It has been a rough couple of weeks. That is for true. But we do see that the outcome of this is Graydon's own seduction. But what I like about this, and so two items that are very important and powerful in this is, of course, Laura's wand gets destroyed. Willow breaks his own staff, though it may be repairable, to use the magical crystal to help bring Eric back, because that is actually that very important thing, which I think is Laura Dannon's real power. Not to destroy, but to convince people that we can do better. That it isn't about destroying, it's about healing. And healing isn't ending the worm. It's just making sure the worm's perspective is kept where it is best used. You know, the worm is best used to strengthen us when we can, and to weaken us when it's our time to go home. That there is a place for the worm in these things, and trying to fight it too hard just makes it angry. But if you let the worm exist, maybe we can have peace and balance in all things. At least that's one theory. You know, it's George Lucas, so they could change it like 6 more times before they finally finish the trilogy. But yeah, I mean, I like it. I like the fact that the worm takes the form of a Laura Dannon, which again immediately changes any images that Willow might have seen about the future.
Yeah.
Because now, if a Laura Dannon is dead, is it a Laura Dannon? Is it the worm? Or is it that in that moment, the worm and the Laura Dannon become one? And the bodies and the images don't matter as they become this, you know, yin-yang circle of life and death and rebirth. Anything's possible. And in that moment, I have to imagine that the key is going to be one good person who makes the decision, and that I think will be Graydon. So mark my words, Graydon is not done yet, and Graydon's hero's journey is not done yet.
But he's
right
gonna
now
have to go through a lot right now.
Yeah, well, right now you kind of end this. We're in the classic hero's journey where he's in the depths of despair, you know, or the point of corruption, the point of temptation. And maybe series 2 is going to be him dealing with that temptation, and then maybe series 3 is the redemption. And then in the irony of ironies, he does wind up marrying Kit, and they become the benevolent rulers of the overworld. You know, as he said at the very beginning, eventually we're going to be in charge and we will make the rules. And again, that's the important thing, not that there will be no rules, but that we will make the rules, because we will make the rules out of compassion and wisdom and the shared experience that we've learned to make sure generational knowledge gets carried forward. But that generational knowledge can be grown and cultivated so that it does not feed the worst of us as we build a better society. At least that's one theory, Mozz.
I like it.
I like it too, because I came up with it. So I'm always very partial to my own ideas. All right, Mozz. Any final thoughts before we put Willow to bed and start thinking about the Mandalorian?
Oh, no, I'm excited to go there, man.
It's going to be exciting, man. We've already got a couple episodes down, and they're really good. So we will talk about that.
I'm going to start them.
Yes, when you join us next, kids. Grogu is back. Mandalorian.
Din Djarin.
Din Djarin is back. Apollo Creed is back. Apollo Creed is doing very well for himself. We'll just
go see that movie if you get a chance. It is amazing.
Oh yeah. Oh, the new one, Creed. Yes. Yes.
Somebody told me that their idea was that they wanted to bring the style of anime fight sequences into live action, and boy, that's what they accomplished. It is wonderful choreography, some of the best fight choreography I've seen, and it's stylized but still feels like you feel the narrative of the story. It's not just random punches and random acts of violence and then they try to pretend like there was a story that happened there. You really get a sense of like the story of the fight unfolding. And with a lot of the stylized choices they make where the crowd goes away and these two friends working their problems out, you get like the dual layers of what's happening. Oh man, it's really, really beautifully done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited about it. I just, I will always be disappointed that they've never brought back Clubber Lang in any. I just want, even if he's just an announcer at a booth, or
Yeah,
the man was heavyweight champion of the world. I want this man to have every other heavyweight champion get some kind of respect. Even if you want him, even if you just want to show him opening up Caesars, just give the man the respect he due. He beat Rocky.
yeah. Let them get 2 or 3 more Creed movies out, and then they'll go to that well and be like, "Hey, Clubber Lang's son also fought."
Well, but I mean, for what it's worth, Creed is the, in its own way, the Clubber Lang story. It's how it echoes. It is. Not to be rude, but the Creed stories are the Rocky stories, but better written. Just to be rude, but yeah. And this is where the young upstart comes and really shows Creed where he's wrong about things, and and also shows where Creed has gotten soft, and then Creed comes back and beats him at the end. I presume, I haven't seen it yet. But
it's more than that. Jonathan Major's character is really terrifying in this.
Yeah.
Like as a person who is willing to do anything, and the restraint he holds on his wildness, that is so palpably dangerous. You never know what he's about to do. The last time I felt this way watching a character on screen be so unpredictable and dangerous was Heath Ledger's Joker. Right, that's the level of danger that is on screen when he's looking at you. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That is a ringing endorsement, Mozz. All right. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you liked Creed and you want to talk about Creed, or if you want us to talk about Creed, because it'll be streaming eventually, any of the Creeds, actually, several of them are already streaming. So if you guys want some like evergreen episodes, hey, why don't you guys talk about Creed? That's streaming online. We could do that. And you can write to us to let us know to do that at CapesandLunatics@gmail.com. That's CapesandLunatics, all spelled out, at gmail.com, or call us and give us your voice and let your voice be heard at 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. We will play it on the air if you so let us. Likewise, go down to the show notes, connect with Linktree, that's LANKTR.ee/CapesandLunatics, all spelled out, where you will find our merch like t-shirts and phone cases and lovely tumblers that keep your hot drinks hot and your cold drinks cool, and the ability to give us just money so that we can keep this on the air, because we are not spawn, both through Cash App and through Patreon. And if people do that and they still want to connect with you directly, Mozz, how can they do so?
Oh, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com, or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way that our mothers and fathers once did at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. Of course, follow me on the Twitter when I live tweet things when I get around to it, at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing.
Thank you, Mozz. All right, you lovable land lovers, we've come to the end of another rousing journey across the shattered sea that is the internet. We hope you come back again next week as we once again sail full stream ahead. Arg. Arg.
Right on.
All right. Okay.